Welcome to Revenge with Arya. Not the reaction I expected. Her words echoed through the crowded gallery like she'd just spotted a knockoff painting at a flea market. Not the $450,000 art collection I'd gifted her as an anniversary surprise in front of 150 guests. Hi everyone. My name is Arya Vance. I'm 31. And tell me what kind of best friend smirks at a priceless gesture like it's yesterday's news. My heart didn't sink. I didn't flinch. I just nodded because that instant was my wake-up call. The puzzle pieces of every slight, every snide remark, every condescending eye roll snapped into place. At the cocktail table, a murmur rippled behind a wine glass. Did she really dismiss it as tacky? Another guest chuckled softly. Then her husband leaned over to his colleague and whispered, just audible enough. Well, Arya always goes for the understated stuff. Understated. A curated set of originals from emerging artists, complete with provenance certificates, hung in a prime New York loft. I leaned against the bar and observed her bask in the spotlight. Not with appreciation, but with arrogance, as if admiration was her birthright. I didn't protest. I didn't justify. I didn't utter a word in defense. Instead, I met her gaze, the polished socialite in her designer dress, and said calmly, "No worries, it's all set." She grinned like she'd outsmarted the room. But as the curator announced the silent auction, I slipped my phone from my clutch, and it took one message. Just one. I typed 4 words to the art broker I'd consulted a month prior, on a hunch that her true colors might show. Initiate recall. Full revocation. Send. She didn't notice. She didn't suspect. But that subtle buzz against my skin was the pivot point where her reality tilted. She just hadn't felt the quake yet. The following day, as she jetted off to her Paris getaway, I was in a sleek Manhattan office, nursing a black coffee like it was routine. Documents have a way of feeling heavier under fluorescent lights. My broker, Ms. Harlow, pushed the folder across the polished desk. It's complete. Full ownership reversion. The pieces are legally yours again. Notification sent via courier this afternoon. I initialed. Just like that, her ego dissolved into contractual dust. And here's the raw human touch. As I exited the building, the doorman nodded at me familiarly. He'd seen me in the lobby before. Little did he know the quiet implosion I'd engineered. On the subway ride home, my phone lit up. Unknown caller. I ignored it. Then another. Then a barrage. 7-12-18. When the calls ceased, a text from her sister flashed. Emergency. Call back ASAP. I didn't. Instead, I headed straight to the storage vault where the art was secured, the one she'd labeled basic. The spotlights illuminated the canvases like treasures. I stood there in the climate-controlled silence and could almost replay her fake chuckle from the night before, preening for the crowd to seem elite. She truly believed I'd overlook the insult. That's the peril of underestimating the silent ones. People confuse composure for compliance. By midday, her business partner DM'd me on Instagram. The gallery is claiming the collection isn't in her possession. Mix-up. I archived the message because for once, they were the chasers, and I hadn't even begun to respond. By sunset, she'd landed in Europe and connected to the hotel's network. That's when the frenzy ignited. She rang 11 times. I let it voicemail. Then her husband, her assistant, her publicist. The shared chat exploded like fireworks. Arya, what happened? They're voiding the transfer. This is a disaster, sort it now. You're shaming us all. Husband. Contact the broker immediately. Arya, tongues are wagging. Fix this. Contributed 0. Instead, I captured every frantic line, every veiled demand, every accusation masked as plea. And for the first time in ages, serenity washed over me. I wandered to my living room, poured a herbal tea, leaned against the window, and inhaled deeply. This wasn't vengeance. This was recalibration. This was equity. The next dawn on their trip, instead of croissants by the Seine, they received the express envelope at concierge. Transfer. Nullified. Assets retained by original owner. The desk clerk delivered it with a polite nod. The messages flooded in moments later. Arya, have you lost it? We bragged to our investors about the collection. Then from him. You've mortified her. Rectify this. Rectify. I responded at last with 5 words. Gratitude was the cost. You declined. Radio silence. Then she pivoted. All right, whatever. Can you reinstate it post-move? Once we're settled. That cracked me up in my own space, because she never grasped it. I didn't offer that collection out of obligation. I did it praying she'd opt for kindness over condescension. She chose wrong. So I chose ownership over indulgence. 4 days on, I'm at the studio mid-morning, refining designs when my colleague Jack slides his screen over. Dude, your friend's viral on TikTok. Meltdown vibes. I arched a brow. Over what? He pulls up the video, her venting about a backstabbing ally and pilfered masterpieces. 500 comments piling on, most probing for dirt she couldn't spill. Then halfway through, his phone buzzes. Her face drains. Some guy your friend's hubby is dialing me. That's when I realized their net was fraying. I told him evenly. Let it ring. He complied, flipping the device down. At 1:45 p.m., an alert from the broker. Attempted reclaim filed by her team. Rejected. At 8:19 p.m., her investor adds me on Twitter, likely to discuss. Block. At 3:27 p.m., her sister messages. This is spiraling. We trusted you. You owe allegiance. I pondered those terms briefly. Allegiance to those who ridiculed the offering. To those who demeaned me for clout among elites. My retort arrived deliberate, precise. You can't deride the worth and then covet the prize. No comeback. At 7:05 p.m., she played her final gambit. Fine, we'll expose you as the traitor. Support will vanish. I grinned because that sealed it. I'd evolved from the overlooked confidant in their tale to the architect of mine. The day after her rant, around 8:15 a.m. during my yoga flow, phone balanced on the mat, a ping hits. Not hers, not his, not the family's. From her gallery curator. Asset verification for exhibit. I paused, not from shock, but the sheer poetry. She'd pitched the collection as her own to secure a solo show slot. She'd leveraged it for a sponsorship deal. Now the board was auditing her claims amid whispers of exaggeration. I replied succinctly. Collection solely under my title. No flair, no backstory, no spin. Truth suffices. 45 minutes later, she drops a voice memo. Tone quivering, pauses ragged. They're accusing her of fraud in the deal. They could pull the contract. Arya, intervene. Intervene. Limits aren't malice. Limits are equilibrium. I fired back. Your fallout isn't my fix. At 10:38 a.m., he texts personally. Pleading, revert it even short term. We'll compensate eventually. Compensate eventually. They hadn't voiced thanks to start. I paused mid-stretch, gazing at the skyline, and it hit. This was unprecedented. They begged, I stood firm. No crumbling, no concessions, no diminishment. For once, I wasn't the enabler. I was the boundary. I was the threshold. And they collided with it. A month later, I graced a creative summit uptown. Tailored suit, poised stride, an inner steadiness newly forged. In the atrium lounge, a presence sneered. Not overt, but charged. That aura of unease from someone once dominant, now diminished. Pivoted. She lingered 8 feet off, no gloss, shadows under eyes, fingers twisting her necklace. Her whisper barely carried. The debut I've heard in decades without facade. Arya, mercy. No spotlights, no entourage, no facade to uphold. Just 2 souls from the same circle, molded differently. Gulp. I forfeit the art. Just reconnect. There it lay. Not atonement but craving. Craving for entry anew. I cradled my flute, sensing the cool glass on my palm. You can't return when your facade fractures, I murmured. Her eyes welled. What's next? I drew air, crisp as dawn, and offered the sole axiom that heals. evolve solo. Her expression crumpled, as if she'd banked on my rescue eternally. But I refused to be her scaffold longer. I strode toward the auditorium, where peers who valued merit beckoned. Merit outshouts entitlement. Resonance outshouts acclaim. Integrity outshouts inheritance. I entered a space of genuine regard. And as the session commenced, I grasped. Authority isn't reclamation. Authority is denying repossession. The ensuing morn, I entered the workspace with my espresso, mind unburdened. Pure lucidity. By 11 a.m. my notifications surged. Her investor messaged directly. Demand reinstatement of assets forthwith. This tarnishes our repute. Demand. As if existence bends to whims. Then the gem, an audio from her kin, you're villainous. This is psychological torment. You're dismantling your own friend. Villainous. Well, villainy is fabrication which fatefully, the auditor uncovered. For I'd engaged a forensic appraiser 72 hours pre-event. Instinct-driven prep. Thus, when my broker rang at 12:03 p.m. stating, discrepancies in their filings, falsified valuations linked to your holdings, I remained unmoved. I dispatched the dossier to the oversight board. Dated, sealed, bundled with the initial gifting pact and annulment. At 3:17 p.m., my phone hummed with 4 words from counsel. Inquiry launched. Advance. I reclined, eyelids shut. Not reprisal, restoration. By 5 p.m. the fallout trended digitally. Attendees from the gala subtly revised their shares. Her spouse scrubbed his bio touting art connoisseur. His circle went incognito. And it dawned. Shame snares the boastful swiftest, for they shun subtlety. That dusk, I softened the ambience, ignited incense and prepped a meal. Deliberate, hushed, tender. Tranquility roars when claimed. That evening, circa 10:25 p.m., my security cam alerted. Activity noted. I approached the entry and viewed the stream. She hovered on the stoop in her gala attire. Smudged liner, disheveled locks, clutch dangling like she'd trekked blocks unshod. Behind, her partner loomed rigid, abashed, evading the lens. She rapped softly, then firmer. Arya, let us in. We must converse. Her timbre fractured midway. Held position. She persisted. It was impulsive banter. There. Not contrition, not insight, not penitence, reputation salvage. He advanced, murmur low. Our networks are outraged. Hers mine. Settle this pre-weekend. They've broadcast the assets as ours to circles. I lingered mute within. For muteness isn't frailty. Muteness is access revocation. He tapped again. Arya, you're devastating us. Again the unspoken core. Some seek not bonds but bounties. I permitted their vigil. Duo shadows ensnared in mortification and alarm, till the entry illumination faded at 10:45. Then I messaged her crisp. You scorned the merit. Now savor the merit of that scorn. Receive. No ellipsis. No retort. Merely 2 forlorn figures confronting a barred threshold they'd once breached as sovereigns. And at last, I sensed the precise gravity of authority settle where it belonged, in my grasp.